you have the option of living in the first world, but you chose to come to the third world. Why?
They also put in a really deep love of Africa and Ethiopia. And that was always planted deeply inside of me. So it's funny that that old work could help to contribute to today's technology, or at least we hope it will.
Why would someone with every opportunity in America choose to build a life in Ethiopia?
Today's guest, a cultural architect and polymath,
On using technology to preserve the past and shape Africa's future.
on the AGI podcast.
I was watching a video yesterday, a TED Talk, and some lady was talking about being a polymath. Do you consider yourself that?
I would consider myself a polymath. I have taken more like a cultural systems architect or cultural architect.
Yeah.
One of my current projects, which is touching upon AI, but the AI is kind of empty on the Africa side.
Would you advise people to vocalize their ignorance?
Culturally, we're not really encouraged to say we don't know. You know, you might ask for directions and they'll just tell you the wrong way instead of saying,
Absolutely. All the time.
instead of saying, I don't know. I've always seen my perspective as like a hybrid view because when you grow up in America, they say you're not American. And when we come back to Ethiopia, you know, you're Faranj, you're not this. So it gives you a third view.
You mentioned AI and knowledge that Africa can tell its story. Do you really believe that that time is coming for Africa? Mati, this is organized kind of conversation, but I don't like to be that guy, an organized guy. So, but I intend to be that way anyways. So don't expect me to be formal about anything.
No, we can just...
I'm really interested about what you do and how you're doing things in Ethiopia. I just want to know about all those things, but I have to start by asking you who you are. For the audience, my audience, who's not familiar with your work, who Mati is, tell us about yourself.
So my name is Metasebia Yoseph. I'm originally born and raised in Washington D.C, but most of my time has been focused here in Addis Ababa. My background is in culture, arts, design, and technology. So that has kind of been the main themes of a lot of my projects and work here in Ethiopia. So design, technology, and culture. So in one way or another, my work has kind of touched upon those different themes, whether it's like media or, you know, in the museums or writing books, developing apps. So all of these different kinds of, you know, different industries have all kind of touched upon bringing, you know, Ethiopian culture to the rest of the world.
Okay, these are not areas that I think female would do, and I don't want to categorize this and that, but I see people being interested in culture and things of that nature, like politics, culture, and technology, and mostly these people are male. But you're not. So why? Isn't it difficult?
Yeah, it's funny because I think it's more male dominated here on the continent, but it's actually more, I see a lot more women in the cultural sector in America, at least, where I grew up. So yeah, sorry, I missed the question. Yeah.
Why not choose something soft?
I mean, for a lot of people, they consider culture soft power.
Yeah.
Right. So, but for me, I think I think when people think about culture, it can be a little abstract because culture is so many things, right? It's like art, music, this, that. But the main thing I think for myself, when I think about culture, it's expression, it's storytelling. And then what changes is the format. So the format of that storytelling, it could be a show, it could be a song, it could be a book, it could be clothes, it can be so many things. All
right. So I would consider you to be very good at one of these things. For example, if I have the image of Metasebia in my mind as someone who follows culture only, I would understand that, but you are in technology as well. So I was watching a video yesterday, a TED talk, and some lady was talking about being a polymath. I don't know what that is. Yesterday was the first day I was introduced to the term and what it is. Do you consider yourself that, or is just by some kind of coincidence that this happened?
I would consider myself a polymath, but I don't use it as a term to describe myself.
All right.
I have taken more like a cultural systems architect or cultural architect, because it's more kind of thinking on this ecosystem level. So there's many different facets to it. And just like a polymath, there's several different things that this person is good at. So yeah, I'm good at a lot of things. But as I mentioned before, I think the through line to those things is culture and platforming culture in different kinds of formats.
Isn't it tiring?
It just depends. I mean, tiring in what way? Tiring like working here in the continent, or tiring doing so many different things?
Yeah.
I don't see it as work. So it doesn't feel kind of like laborious or tiring for me. I'm doing things that I'm excited about, that I'm inspired by. So it re-energizes me to continue on.
All right. Tell me about the experience of being born in the U.S. I mean, that country that we imagine and we think of going somewhere someday and be that person, prosperous person, have the wealth and everything. And there's this experience of being in Ethiopia, working in Ethiopia. But you have the option of living in the first world, but you chose to come to the third world, according to the definition of the UN. And you're living in Ethiopia and trying to influence a lot of things in Ethiopia. Why? Again.
I think that's a great question. I think I'm definitely a product of like the American dream, where my parents, I'm first generation Ethiopian American. My parents came when they were like 17 years old to go to school, and they end up staying due to, political unrest here at the time. And they make their way slowly to some type of level of, middle class comforts. And, I am a product of that. I was well educated. I had every opportunity and benefit, and really they literally cleared the way for me to do whatever I wanted, because I didn't have to pick, I'm going to be engineer, doctor. It was really up to me to figure it out. And I'm so grateful that they gave me the space to do that. But they also put in a really deep love of Africa and Ethiopia. And that was always planted deeply inside of me. And because they continued, to nurture that connection back home, home, it's something that I was always curious about. So even as I was studying, I always tie my studies back to Ethiopia. When I was studying art history, I would be researching, the 6th century and 4th century kings and different kinds of artworks and different kinds of, so I always take my educational foundation and I'm trying to tie it back to my origins.
Okay. Tell me about your first experience of Ethiopia, coming to Ethiopia and seeing all these kind of things that you were expecting or not. Yeah. And how was it like?
I think it was eye-opening.
All right.
Because when you are young and growing up in the West, we're raised on TV and Hollywood, and you pretty much take it as fact. I feel like people are still taking what they see on their screens as fact, which is kind of concerning. But then we didn't have any other source of information. Right. Now there's too much information. Then one source is telling us what Africa was, what Ethiopia was, and it was completely different when I actually came to visit for myself. And it's something I always tell, especially to my Black friends, but any of my friends, to go back to Africa and check it out and see for yourself, because it's just a completely different experience than what we have been led to believe. And I was just so impressed by the resiliency of the people, the history. I was just excited by what I saw.
Would you say the affiliation kept you in Ethiopia because this is who you are, or You just want to explore and see things.
Yeah, I mean, definitely because I had, my dad was here and some family members were here. There was a little bit of a safety net
All right.
to explore Africa. And sadly, I probably didn't explore more of Africa until a few years later, after I got more familiar with Ethiopia. And I started venturing out to other places. And I'm still hoping to see more.
All right. So I was listening to a book yesterday, the day before yesterday, someday like that. And a very famous rapper from the US wrote a book, and he was narrating the whole book. And he was, at the end of the book, he was mentioning his journey to Africa, and he came to some northern part of Africa, and later he came to the eastern part of Africa, and he was explaining how life is hard in the continent. And he was trying to preach or tell the people living in the US to actually be grateful about the opportunities they have in there. Would you consider that to be the correct sentiment?
I mean, it's hard. I don't want to police how people feel about different things and issues, but I do a lot of times kind of tell my friends when I'm visiting, back in DC, sometimes, the problems that they're considering problems, they don't even register for me.
All right.
Because I'm used to seeing real hardcore problems of like, no power, no water, maybe no legs, no something like you see actual real, challenges. So conversely, when I go back, some of the times the things that frustrate them or that they think is a problem, but more might just be like an irritation. I have to kind of give them a little bit of a reality check. Like, is this really that big of a deal?
Would you say you have a responsibility to address the problems that we have in the continent in Africa, and particularly in Ethiopia? As someone of Ethiopian origin, do you have that obligation or responsibility in your mind and think that I have to address this and I have to address that? And would that be the reason that you are really invested in technology and other things?
No, I mean, I think my interest in technology and culture really just what I'm interested in.
All right.
I'm kind of just a geek in that way. But as far as like problems, I like to think of myself as a global citizen.
All right.
So I do, because of the kind of my systems kind of thinking, I have an understanding that things are connected. We don't live in separate lanes.
Yeah.
So, what happens to my neighbor is affecting me. What happens to the larger city is affecting me. What happens to regional level, global level. So all of these things are interconnected. So I have a, concern, and I want to be of help and resolve wherever I can.
Okay. Tell me about some of your works. I mean, you glossed over some part of it, but I want to hear the details. I want to know what it is that you do in Ethiopia and how it is affecting the lives of the people in here. And tell me about it.
Okay, so I think the first job that I worked, which is free, by the way, for a year, I mentioned it to you earlier. I was working at Diskilo.
All right.
And this was like right after I graduated from undergrad. It was 2008 financial crisis. I'm aging myself, but 2008 financial crisis, just graduated. No one is hiring. So I decided to come visit family here in Ethiopia and gain some work experience because I have to work, whether I'm getting paid or not. So I created a job for myself at the Institute of Ethiopian Studies. And they had just gotten a grant from UNESCO.
All right.
And the grant was to digitize old Bibles and Qurans and photographs. So I said, I'll do that. And they set up like a little dark room, but it was one of Haile Selassie's old tile bathrooms.
All right.
And we created it into a dark room, and I used to spend all day scanning and digitizing.
All right.
So that was like one of my early jobs. And I think the impact there was preserving culture. And at that time, I don't think there was much interest in the importance of that or the significance of that. And that's something, it's funny because we can come back to it later, but one of my current projects, which is touching upon AI, it really is inspired by that time, in the darkroom, because AI now is, feeding off a lot of data. But the AI is kind of empty on the Africa side. It doesn't have enough information. All of its books that it's been trained on is from a different kind of perspective. So it really has a big gap when it comes to Africa, to Ethiopia. So it's funny that that old work could help to contribute to today's technology, or at least we hope it will. So that was one thing. And then one thing I noticed during that time in the museum, we had I hope they don't get mad, but we had a lot of old Bibles and relics were stored into a bathroom.
All right.
And there was a pipe that had burst. And these are like hundreds of year old artifacts. And I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? Why is it being stored like this? Because I'm used to the Smithsonian. I'm used to these museums. You have to put on a glove. You can't even touch the artifacts. But here it's just like stuffed, stacked up, and the water is touching it. And I was just like, guys, this is half touching. This is it. This is our wealth. What is going on? So I realized it's the way we think about culture. It's the way we're thinking about heritage. And there was a perspective that had to change. So that kind of planted a seed in me that a few years later, I would come to push, which was developing Design Week Addis Ababa.
All right.
So the Design Week Addis Ababa platform was mainly to help support the cultural and creative industries. So really, for me, because I was planning to work here and live here, was I was kind of terraforming. I wanted to transform the environment to be more conducive for a creative person like myself. At the time, it wasn't. So by creating this event, this platform where people from different industries can show off their innovations, their ideas, we can get together, and it just became, it just helped to change the mindset. So, and I think when I look at 10 years later, how Addis Ababa has changed. You see design everywhere. You see, these interiors, the fashion, the graphic design, the photography. It just seems like things have definitely transformed, and the creative sector has really, come to the forefront.
Amazing. Did you have a chance to see other places other than Addis?
Yes, of course.
Like?
Aksum, Lalibela, the tours, of course.
Definitely. I was expecting you to say Lalibela because I had this experience in Lalibela and I was floored. That was my first time of going there with some people from the US, and I had this imagination, and I was told about the history of Ethiopia in a very different way. And I thought I understand Ethiopian history, but the moment I went there, I saw everything in there, floored me.
Seeing is believing.
Yeah, seeing is believing. So I want to know what your impression is, and I want you to tell me whether or not we are telling our stories in a way that they deserve to be told.
I think, I give so much credit to the tour guides and the communities on the ground because they are the stewards who have kept these things intact until today. So on that side, it's amazing. But are we doing our best to communicate this rich heritage to the rest of the world? I think we're starting to now. You see these amazing quality videos, the drone footages. I think I saw someone recently that was like, oh, this is not Indonesia. This is not Indonesia, because we have such a rich terrain, environmental terrain. Absolutely. So even Hollywood has come knocking a few times because you could literally shoot any kind of, from alien film to, looking like it's from somewhere in Europe to this, to that, because our landscape is so diverse. So have we done the best job of communicating that? I think we could do a lot more, because for the past how many years, the loudest narrative was famine. People still think that. So then that means we have a lot of, to do to kind of drown out that and create a new timeline.
All right. So I heard you mention AI. Myself and my friends in here, we have a very big interest around that area. And we talk about it a lot in the show, and people come here thinking that they will be talking about AI anyway. So what do you expect will happen to that area in relation to Ethiopia? Because you've been mentioning the relics, and we don't have those transcribed in a way that AI can access them. And what is the responsibility that we have? Because it relates to telling our stories and all of those things. What are you thinking about that? I'm thinking of the contribution that you would bring to the table, if there is any.
It's such an interesting time whenever a new technology is coming about, whenever any new service, anything comes about. It's so interesting because we're literally writing the rules as we go. We're figuring it out as we go. And so there's a great part of that, and there's also a dangerous part of that. And the thing is, everyone globally is trying to figure it out as they go. And so we could either replicate what everyone is figuring out, or we can figure it out for ourselves. The main issue right now with data and AI is kind of digital sovereignty. Who will control it, right? Again, who will control the narrative? So those are kind of things that we have to really figure out, how much to expose, how much to keep tight. These are things that we have to kind of negotiate, because the next, I would say 10 years is going to be really, really essential, because once it's out there, it's gone, right? You can no longer put it back in. So we have to kind of decide first what's important, right? And then how do we keep it secure?
All right. If we have to gauge the level of comfort that we get, I would say whenever I am in Addis, I'm most comfortable. I was not born in here, but I like it here.
Do you mean like travel comfort or what?
Comfort in terms of being in some place. You have different places that you call yours. For example, there is a US.
My different homes.
Yeah. You have Addis. Do you have a different level of comfort in the two places?
Different level of comfort? No, I don't think so. I mean, because I'm so used to DC, because I was born and raised there. I'm a DC girl. I mean, I actually feel probably a little bit less comfortable, because it used to be known as Chocolate City, so it's not as chocolate as it used to be. I look like a foreigner now when I go.
It's called Chocolate City because of the residents living there.
Yeah, the residents used to be a lot majority Black.
All right.
And when I was growing up, that's how it was. It's not so much anymore. So a lot of times when I go into different spaces, especially coming from Africa, when we're used to like everyone is of color, and then you go somewhere and you're just like, oh, I forget sometimes. But I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere.
All right. Amazing. I heard someone say, a very smart guy, a very popular guy, vocalize your ignorance. That is when you start to understand the world. I assumed as an Ethiopian, vocalizing our ignorance is the last thing we want to do. And the lens that he was telling that story is from understanding what you don't know, so that you can learn and achieve whatever you achieve. But we don't have it as a culture.
Yeah.
Would you advise people to vocalize their ignorance?
Yeah, I would agree that culturally, we're not really encouraged to say we don't know. You might ask for directions and they'll just tell you the wrong way instead of saying
absolutely all the time,
instead of saying I don't know. So that, I think that's a cultural thing. And it's interesting because when we think about business and entrepreneurship and innovation, we do have to learn how to experiment in order to learn a lot. So I don't know if that is really encouraged, but I think it's good to encourage it.
I mean, as someone who is really interested in culture, and this is our thing, it is part of our identity.
Yeah.
We don't like saying we don't know, because growing up with my cousins, the ones among the cousins, the ones that claimed to know everything were respected, loved, and provided for. any need they had.
Yeah.
So what I learned is I shouldn't say I don't know, even if I don't know anything about anything. So the same thing that you said resonates with this part of the story that we have.
Yeah.
So how do you think we should address it?
I mean, there's a great like Ethiopian saying, I think that's like a closed mouth doesn't get fed or doesn't get its medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So saying I don't know, opens up an opportunity to find out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should encourage more of that.
So when we encourage saying I don't know, should it be in the Western way or should we create a different way? The Western way is mostly going through this psychiatry or something like that, therapy or all those kind of things. But should we create a new kind of way?
I mean, Google is a friend. That is one way to find out when we don't know, which I actually feel like people don't use enough of.
All right. I mean, I'm mentioning it and I'm saying all these things because, for example, in the dating world, you go out with a partner or someone of a different sex. So you start talking about things and you are the expert at whatever you are talking about. This is how we are accustomed to. Like, we try to impress people
with your knowledge and expertise,
everything like that. But most of the time, we don't know what we are talking about, but we just want to impress other people.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that is becoming a culture.
Right.
So how do we reverse it is my problem.
I think maybe, and from a cultural perspective, maybe focusing more on these kind of, genuine exchanges, authentic conversations, so that we can learn from each other in more real ways instead of just kind of fake news and knowledge. I don't know. So.
All right. So American values and Ethiopian values, do they conflict for you?
No, you know what? I've always seen my perspective as like a hybrid view because when you grow up in America, they say you're not American.
All right.
That's how they used to, regard us. And when we come back to Ethiopia, you're Faranj, you're not this. So it gives you a third view, and I've come to see that as a superpower because it lets me bring these two cultures together, and a perspective that I can share.
Okay. Any value that you think from the West we should bring to Ethiopia and we should embrace and practice?
I think there is a grit that they call like a bootstrapping, like you got to just kind of keep it moving and get through it, that we can borrow from, but we don't necessarily have to take it too far because there's detrimental sides of that too. One of the beautiful things about, our community here is the community side, the social side. We don't have to take that too far either, where it's like, so between the two, this kind of rugged individualism plus the community side, if we can bring these two things together in a way that benefits, our growth and development, I think we could have a secret sauce. All
right. Amazing. That reminds me of this conversation I heard from a Chinese scholar who actually studied in the US. And this scholar understands how the economic development and everything happened in the US and try to take this economic development story of the US to China. And she tells both stories, the stories of the Western world and the Chinese story. And I see what you're saying in actually bringing the two things and getting the best out of it.
Yeah.
But grit is one of the things that you mentioned. Do you really believe that we can have a society that believes in grit? Because the other extreme is really there. So people like socializing, for example, myself, my friends, working hard, what we think about is just go, chill, have fun, talk about people, talk about things, or even talk about ideas, talk about culture. We don't like spending, most time on issues or that takes your energy. So do you really believe we can bring that? I am skeptical about most of the things that we do in here. And one of the things is this culture of grit.
I mean, I think we're already living it
Yeah,
because it's not easy.
Yeah, right.
So we're already getting through, but we're not kind of patting ourselves on our back for our strength in getting through. So the grit is kind of something to be proud of, right? Because it's a strength.
Yeah, right.
So here, I think we have to, pull from that strength.
All right. Tell me about your media experience and the things that you learned from that experience, because I see you being reserved, talking about most of the things, and you measure what you say.
Yeah.
Is that the result of media?
It's not a result of media. It's just, I think it's a result of, growing up in the Ethiopian community, especially in DC, where, we are just so emotional about when we talk and discuss. So there's, one thing can just be taken out of proportion when that might necessarily be the intent. So I think it's always good to have like a measured conversation, no matter the topic. But yeah, so, and I've actually experienced that from my media time where, certain stories get taken the wrong way. But it's learning lessons.
Do you think we're having organic conversation now?
Yes, definitely.
Really?
Yeah. You think so?
I think so too. But I want more of it. That is the reason I'm asking this question, so that you can talk about them. And the other thing I want to mention about is your experience of coming to Ethiopia and the impression that you think people had of your presence around them and the experience you have right now. Can you compare it?
How so? What do you mean?
Maybe if you think that people had a stereotype about your presence coming to Ethiopia and they understand your actions in a certain way, and now
you mean people in the US or the people here?
People in Ethiopia.
People in Ethiopia. I think when I first came, diaspora was not a nice word.
Yeah, it
felt very loaded. I don't feel that the heaviness of it now. I think it's a little bit lighter. So that's good to see, where it's not so much us, them, they, this, it doesn't feel as separated. It feels more like, a shared exchange, which is good. So that's definitely has changed.
All right. Is there anything that you want us Ethiopians to be savvy about or savvy at, apart from creating that culture of grit?
I think thinking more holistically.
All right.
About anything we do, like if I'm doing a new app product, if I'm creating a collection, if any endeavor I undertake, I like to think of it in a really comprehensive, holistic way. There's like 20 million questions going through my mind when I'm thinking to do X, because I'm thinking about a whole ecosystem of things that it could touch, impact, affect. And I would love if we could think more holistically when we do anything, because a lot of times, you'll see it could be something as simple as a street light being repaired, or someone is doing whatever. Right. We kind of have a tunnel vision when we do something instead of having a wider perspective of how we're doing it, who it impacts, what's the best way to do it. And I think if we could have that kind of approach, it could be really powerful.
Are you advising Ethiopians to be a polymath like yourself? Because we believe in expertise. Like,
yes, I know, but it's not just Ethiopians though.
All right.
The whole world has been, taught to think in expertise in lanes. But if you look at nature, does nature grow in a straight line? No, it doesn't. No. It's kind of spreads. It grows out in different ways that it needs to. It touches so many different things. And so we have to kind of think, our mind, especially now in the age of AI, your mind can think at a macro level, a micro level, sideways, this ways. We have to take these different kinds of perspectives and approach.
Yeah, definitely. But Ethiopia, you met the people. Yes. So we have this environment. The weather is really good.
Lovely.
We don't have that. We don't have to struggle to feed ourselves. So the experience you have in the Western world, in the other world, it could be in Asia or as a part of the world. There is this winter, then comes fall or as a kind of season, and you have to really strive to make it through all those seasons. But in Ethiopia, you don't have all those problems. So whatever you want from life, if you strive a little, you'll get more. So how do you think we can adopt? How do you think we can have this kind of mentality of actually thinking about different things and going for what the West considers achievement or what the other world considers achievement? Sometimes because I think the way Ethiopians are living is a proper way because, okay, this is the environment that we are created in. Maybe God has a reason to create us in this land.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for us to set our own standards for what achievement means or looks like. I don't think it's fair or even necessary for us to kind of constantly hold ourselves against a Western model or Western, set of achievements. So that is something we have to kind of decide for ourselves. And also personally, like individually, what is my standard? I don't necessarily have to have 1 billion if that's what the neighbor has. Maybe my set of standard for success is a different definition. So I think we have to define that for ourselves.
What's next for Mati?
What's next for Mati? Mati has recently started a venture studio.
All right.
So I have a portfolio of different startups that I'm currently incubating and cooking up. One is in AI, one is in beauty. I have something in fintech. So really putting that, the Polymath experience for these different projects. And I've proven to myself here during this amazing time, testing out different ideas over the years, working with amazing people. So gaining so much different experience, but I'm kind of ready to do it my way.
I'm assuming that you decided to stay in Ethiopia for a very long time and...
I mean, I'll be here as long as y'all will have me.
No, it's amazing. I mean, we cannot get tired of people like yourself because you're bringing a very crucial element of our development to the table. So we really respect and admire what you're doing. But I just want to know if you can tell me about the challenge and what you have learned from the challenge that you faced in Ethiopia. And what are some of the recommendations that you have to overcome this kind of challenge that you faced?
It's funny because it feels like, because the world right now feels very chaotic and it doesn't feel anymore like, oh, this is the safe place or that is the safe place. Kind of globally, we're going through a big transition. But I feel like my time here has prepared me for this current chaos because I'm not breaking a sweat or panicking because of years of training of different kinds of like, chaotic scenarios and, instability here and there. So the approach that I usually take or how I like to think of things is kind of like surfing. So, when you're surfing on the water, it's bumpy, it's wavy, there's velocity, speed, but you kind of have to try to find your balance, but also keep moving at the same time. And I think that is probably the best approach to living and working in any kind of environment that doesn't feel like, that feels like it's constantly changing and in transition.
Tell me about that experience in Addis years ago. And apparently you drove in Addis like 10 or more than that.
When I first came in 2008, my dad just gave me the car. Well, he said you have to learn how to drive stick shift.
All right.
Because all of the cars were stick shift then.
All right.
Automatic was not seen as a good thing then.
No, okay.
Now it's majority automatic. It's funny how, people's perceptions change over time. So I had to learn how to drive stick and I got through that. And then he handed me the keys. And I was driving in a time where there was not really that many driving rules. So, you're kind of just figuring it out. It's, whoever can get through the lane is the one who's going to make it. And early on, we were not encouraged to wear seatbelts.
All right.
So, if you were wearing a seatbelt, most likely you'd be pulled over, actually. So that was an interesting time. Now we've kind of, adopted those universal standards, but that was an interesting time, to be here and also to adjust my thinking of how I'm going to live.
Amazing. A lot of the things that you told me makes me think of one thing. I mean, your experience and the depth of it is really exciting. I like meeting people like yourself and learning from them a lot. But again, it makes me think about, where is she from? The parents around you and the people that impacted your life, and the achievements impacted everything that you are now today.
Yeah.
Tell me about the people around you. Tell me about your mom, dad, and people that impacted your life.
So my parents, Yosef and Mabet, they're intellectuals. They were very big on education and knowledge. They felt like knowledge is something no one could take away from you. So no matter what happens in the world, upheaval, being moved around and different kinds of issues, knowledge is something that would always be with you. So that was a big part of my upbringing. And I think, that sense of grit wasn't necessarily like an American only thing.
Right.
I think them having, from 17 years old, having to figure out their way in a strange land with strange rules and, a small community to kind of get them through, they really instilled in us just like, don't complain, just keep it going, do your best to resolve it. And, try to get through to the next milestone. And I think that has really helped me here, where a lot of different issues, a lot of different challenges, but you say, okay, well, what can I control? Let me take it incrementally, or whatever the milestone, and let me just try to keep it moving.
Amazing. Do you believe what brought you to where you're today in terms of education, in terms of knowledge that you have, will actually help people, this generation especially, the same way it helped you? But
knowledge in general?
Knowledge, education, and your background. For example, you've been talking about AI and democratization of knowledge and everything that relates to it. And I have this fear that people going to these institutions, big institutions, are somehow destined to not achieve whatever people in the past achieved going through that process. So do you have the belief that the process that you went through and the achievements that you achieved are because of knowledge, education, experience, wisdom, and all these things? Do you think the same effect will apply to the generation coming next?
I think, the main thing is kind of the mindset.
All right.
So, critical thinking is key. And I don't know, that has to be kind of not necessarily taught,
All right.
but it has to be kind of learned and explored and researched. So I don't know if it's necessarily the institution, but it's the mindset of the learner or the student that's kind of key, because you have to have a healthy curiosity about your world, about how things work, about how they affect people. And I think that kind of mindset is something you can take in any industry.
You hinted on earlier being a nerd. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I've just been super curious about everything, and I love to do deep dives on different subjects. I think for me, culture, I studied art history early on. It was easy because it was so like a big umbrella for the world. It touches on so many different countries and peoples and things. So it was a great umbrella. And then when I started getting into technology, it was another big umbrella, because technology touches so many things, either our camera, our phone, satellites, so many things. So I like big ideas.
Do you think Africa and Ethiopia in particular will be able to tell their stories oh, do you think we'll be able to tell our stories anytime soon? Because now Google is telling our story, YouTube is telling our story. These are American platforms. X is telling our stories. People, they think because they're using Facebook or one of these platforms, they think they are telling their stories. But the owner of the story, you are just there to use the platform. The owner is another person. If the owner doesn't like it, he will take it, or he will demolish it, or he or she will do whatever they want with whatever the thing that you want to say in there. So someone was mentioning in this table, the journey that he has started is just to make sure that Africa will be able to tell its story. Do you really believe? Because you mentioned AI and knowledge and the stories, the anecdote that you mentioned about Addis Ababa University, the relics and the experience you had in there.
Yeah.
It made me, it is forcing me to think of the way that Africa can tell its story or can create that opportunity for the people of Africa to tell their own stories. Do you really believe that time is coming for Africa?
I think it's here. I think it's we have so much knowledge, traditional knowledge, and cultural heritage that has yet to even be digitized, let alone get into the AI space. And also the stories, right? So we have firsthand stories from people that were actually in these places. Like if you think about Adwa, how many people are left to tell those stories? So it's so important that we capture the stories that they have to share and get them recorded for future generations before there's nothing left. Then you have people saying what they said they think it is, and there's nothing to counter that. So
no, I was trying to actually mention owning the platform. For example, we have a TV set, but the satellite is somewhere controlled by some people. So they allow it, you watch something.
But it goes exactly back to what we were talking about earlier, which is digital sovereignty.
Yeah, definitely.
So who owns the platforms? We have to decide what's important to digitize. And then we have to decide, how do we share this? What gets shared publicly? What doesn't? What goes out there? Because once we put it out, we don't own it anymore. So it's extremely important. And going back to the platforms, it's so interconnected right now that there's a lot of infrastructure that would need to be built if we were going to be sovereign on hardware. And I don't know if we're there.
Amazing. So meeting people here, talking about their experience in other countries, it could be the US, UK, and other places. And I tend to ask about young people living in those places, whose father or whose parents are from Ethiopia, whose parents are from Africa. And I happen to meet most of these young people in different scenario settings, and most of the times, in most of the circumstances, when I talk to these people, young people, they're more interested, more knowledgeable, more actually curious about Ethiopia than the people we have in here, the young people we have in here.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like so reverse. The people here want to be there, and the people there kind of want to be here.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like what was at the heart when I was working on the media company.
Yeah, right.
I wanted to create a digital space where we can both kind of learn and exchange and see that, hey, it's not that much different. There's no more here and there.
How do you think we can make sure that people living in the US, for example, young people living in the US, understand the correct Ethiopia, the real Ethiopia, and the young people living in here, for example, my work takes me to places, and I interact with these young people in different part of Ethiopia, and they have this imaginary land called the US or Norway or Scotland or Germany, where they think everything will be handed to them and they will get all the opportunities in the world. I failed to explain all the things, but I try to convince them, but they don't like whatever I would say.
Yeah.
So how can we make people understand that everything they want in life isn't here? They can achieve whatever they want in here. I sometimes think that they think of me like a fool, trying to persuade or convince them of the opportunities that they have in here. So that's why I asked you the question.
Yeah.
How can we make sure that people understand the reality of the world, this world and the other world?
I think you mentioned it earlier, which is more telling of our stories. I think we need more diaspora stories. There was a couple, I think, programs I used to see where, you know, people would show what the real life is like there. And I think if people saw more of that, instead of it being glamorized as much, you know, that could be interesting for people to kind of really get a better perspective. On the converse side, on this side, I think we could do better at developing programs where young people can come for the summer or for 6 months or after, you know, high school and spend some time to give back, but also to learn. Yeah. And I remember my time early on when I used to come made me a better student because I appreciated it more. I learned when I learned what the matrix exam was and that people didn't have a choice sometimes in what they studied.
Yeah.
That shocked me. So that I said, oh, okay, over here I get to choose what I'm kind of taking it loose and easy. I need to kind of be serious about this because I have a privilege to even pick what I want to learn. So just small experiences and perspectives like that could really be so rich for, you know, our understanding and development.
Does that surprise you? For example, most of my friends went to university and they studied engineering or some kind of course, for example, accounting, without having, a very rudimentary understanding of what accounting is. And they tend to complain a lot, but they live life after that.
Yeah.
Still, we have that happening, but not in that extent. But we still have it, I would say. Do you consider that to be a problem?
What, the metric?
No. I mean, what if you are given a choice and you don't succeed, but you're given an assignment
and you do succeed?
You do succeed.
No, I mean, ultimately it's what you make of it, right?
Yeah.
But it's the opportunities for you to either do well or to lose it.
All right.
So my point was mainly that just the exchange of seeing someone else's perspective may make you appreciate yours more. Yeah.
Do you read?
Do I read? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I do.
I mean, AI messed everybody up, and we're not reading anymore a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm reading as many physical books.
All right.
But I do read a lot of like articles,
All
and I do like curious. I'll hear something about something, and then I'll go, research about it. A lot on Perplexity because they pull a lot of research reports and different kinds of things. And then I'm also multimedia as well. So I'll watch a lot of deep dives on videos, and I'm just, if I'm hungry for a topic, I'm just going to consume.
Yeah. Is it the same reading books or watching a video?
You know what? I think there's different learning styles.
All right.
So it's one, now get the information.
No, because I end up blaming myself because I watch a lot of videos and YouTube and other kind of videos, and I say, what am I doing? Like, because we are actually accustomed to understanding knowledge in the form of reading these physical books. And when you watch videos, you don't think it is knowledge, or you don't think you're getting anything.
I think it's important to make sure we're not just consuming mindlessly. It's, you want to be able to digest the info. So even after taking a few videos in, I like to write a little bit to make sure that I'm figuring out my own thoughts about what it is I just saw or read. Okay.
This is my final question.
Okay.
The people that we have in Ethiopia, we consider you are one of us, even though you're from the US. And it's amazing to have you in here and talk about different things that we exchanged, it is my way of showing my gratitude that I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
So this is my admiration or my appreciation of the things that you're doing. But I expressed it in this way.
Okay.
If you were in my place, how would you express it?
To someone else like me?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would just be curious about, what else is next and what other impact, this person is looking to create.
Would you be going to media anymore?
Into media?
Yeah.
I do have interests in media. It would be AI enabled. So the AI is not quite there yet. So we're starting kind of on an early stage, just on the content side, developing different scripts and stories. But it's a little bit a ways away. I'll be launching an EdTech app soon. So it's called Digital Gojo.
All right.
And inside Digital Gojo, there's a game called Fun with Fidel. It'll be helping youth, like my kids, learn, is Fidel characters, like their ABCs, kind of. So that's something I'm excited about. And like I said, just kind of more, opportunities and projects to kind of showcase our cultural heritage to the world.
Metasebia, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right.